The sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the bustling farmers' market in the heart of Oak Hollow, a quaint little town where life moved at its own leisurely pace. Samuel "Sam" Grayson, a jovial and burly farmer in his mid-50s, was one of the market's regular fixtures. With his easy smile and booming laugh, Sam was known for his fresh produce, homemade jams, and knack for making everyone feel welcome. On this particular morning, Sam sat behind his stall, wearing his signature straw hat and plaid shirt, chatting with customers as they admired the ripe tomatoes and fragrant herbs he had on display. To the townsfolk, Sam was nothing more than a kind-hearted farmer who loved the simple life. Few knew about the years he spent as a CIA operative, conducting covert missions in some of the most dangerous corners of the world. Sam had retired from that life years ago, choosing the quiet solitude of the countryside over the chaos and danger of espionage. His farm was his sanctuary, and the market was where he connected with the community. But despite his seemingly laid-back demeanor, the instincts he had honed during his years in the field were never far from the surface. That peaceful routine was shattered when the sound of roaring motorcycles pierced the morning calm. Heads turned as a group of leather-clad bikers rolled into the market, their engines rumbling like a thunderstorm. The Iron Fangs, a notorious gang, had arrived. The gang's leader, Duke Razor Malone, was the first to dismount. Towering and heavily tattooed, Duke exuded an air of menace as he led his gang through the market. Vendors fell silent, their cheerful conversations replaced by uneasy glances and hurried movements. The bikers began wandering between stalls, knocking over displays, and intimidating anyone who dared to protest. Sam watched from his booth, his smile fading as the gang approached. Duke's gaze landed on him, and a sneer spread across his face. "Well, look at this," Duke said, gesturing to Sam's display. "A fat farmer selling overpriced vegetables. How quaint." The gang laughed, and one of the bikers grabbed a jar of Sam's prize jam, tossing it back and forth like a toy. "How about you give us a discount, big guy?" another sneered. Sam didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, his expression calm, but his mind already assessing the situation. They thought he was just a harmless farmer. They had no idea what they were up against. The Iron Fangs had no idea they had just provoked the wrong man. Sam's eyes followed every move the bikers made. Though his outward demeanor remained calm, leaning back in his chair and folding his hands over his stomach, his mind was already working like a finely tuned machine. Years of CIA training kicked in, evaluating their body language, assessing threats, and pinpointing vulnerabilities. They were loud, brash, and careless, amateurs compared to the adversaries he had faced in his past life. Duke Razor Malone stepped closer, his towering figure looming over Sam's stall. He snatched another jar of jam and held it up like a trophy. "What's the matter, big guy? Cat got your tongue?" he mocked, twisting the lid off and deliberately dumping its contents onto the ground. Sam's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to take a slow breath. He reached down to pick up a stray carrot that had rolled from his stand, dusted it off, and bit into it. "You're making a mess," he said evenly, his voice calm but with a subtle edge. "Someone's gonna have to clean that up." The bikers burst into laughter, clearly enjoying themselves. One of them tipped over a basket of tomatoes, letting them scatter across the cobblestones. Another grabbed a bundle of herbs, throwing it like confetti. The vendors nearby looked on in nervous silence, unwilling to intervene. Duke leaned in closer, his smirk turning into a sneer. "And what are you gonna do about it, farmer? Gonna call the sheriff? Or maybe cry for help?" Sam smiled faintly, his eyes narrowing ever so slightly. "Not yet," he replied. "I figure you'll dig your own grave soon enough." Duke's laughter faltered, his bravado momentarily shaken by the unexpected response. But he quickly recovered, waving Sam off. "You're lucky I'm in a good mood, old man," he said, gesturing to his gang. "Let's roll." The bikers revved their engines as they left, leaving a trail of chaos in their wake, broken displays, spilled produce, and a tense silence that hung heavy in the air. The calm before the storm. As the market vendors began cleaning up the mess, Sam quietly packed up his stall. A young vendor, Abby, whose handcrafted jewelry display had been smashed by the bikers, approached him hesitantly. "Mr. Grayson," she said, her voice trembling, "thank you for standing up to them. No one else dared to say anything." Sam gave her a reassuring smile. "It's not over yet, Abby. Go home and stay safe. I'll take care of this." Abby frowned, confused but too shaken to argue. "Be careful," she said before walking away. Sam loaded the last of his supplies into his truck and drove back to his farm. As soon as he pulled into his driveway, he shed his farmer's demeanor. His jovial smile disappeared, replaced by the focused determination of a man preparing for battle. The preparation. Sam unlocked the door to his shed, which was more than it appeared. Inside, beneath a layer of farming tools and equipment, was a concealed compartment that housed the remnants of his past life. A steel case filled with tactical gear, surveillance equipment, and weapons. He opened the case, his fingers brushing over items he hadn't touched in years. A lightweight Kevlar vest, a compact Glock pistol, a set of miniature cameras, and a tactical knife. He equipped himself carefully, knowing the bikers wouldn't stop at petty vandalism. Sam also retrieved a small drone, which he programmed to scout the nearby area. From his intelligence gathering, Sam had learned the Iron Fangs used an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town as their base of operations. It was where they stored stolen goods, planned their schemes, and celebrated their intimidation campaigns. Tonight, he would pay them a visit. Infiltration. Under the cover of darkness, Sam drove his truck to a wooded area near the warehouse and parked out of sight. He deployed his drone, which buzzed quietly through the night sky, sending back live footage of the building's exterior. The gang was there, drinking and laughing around a makeshift fire pit. Their motorcycles were parked in a neat row near the entrance, and two men stood guard, lazily leaning against the doorway. Sam noted the positioning of the guards, the layout of the building, and the stack of crates that seemed to contain stolen merchandise. With everything in place, he moved in, using the shadows and his surroundings to mask his approach. His size might have seemed like a disadvantage, but Sam's movements were deliberate and calculated, his steps silent on the gravel. The first guard didn't see him coming. Sam took him down with a swift chokehold, lowering the unconscious man to the ground without a sound. The second guard turned, but Sam was faster, striking him with the hilt of his knife and leaving him crumpled near the door. Taking the fight inside. Inside the warehouse, the gang was oblivious to Sam's presence, their laughter and crude jokes echoing off the walls. Using the miniature cameras he had placed earlier, Sam tracked their movements, strategically disabling key lights and locking certain doors to isolate smaller groups. When the first group of bikers realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Sam moved quickly, using his surroundings to his advantage. He tipped over a stack of crates, scattering their contents and creating a diversion. One biker lunged at him, swinging a crowbar, but Sam sidestepped easily, disarming him and delivering a precise blow that sent him sprawling. The chaos escalated as more bikers joined the fray, but Sam remained calm and in control. He used a sack of flour as an improvised smoke bomb, blinding several bikers and creating enough confusion to take them down one by one. His strength, coupled with his tactical expertise, made him a force to be reckoned with. Facing Duke. The final confrontation came when Sam found himself face to face with Duke in the center of the warehouse. Duke, realizing his gang was being systematically dismantled, grabbed a steel pipe and squared off against Sam. "You think you're tough, farmer?" he growled. "Let's see what you've really got." Sam smirked, his voice calm and steady. "You've already seen what I've got, Duke. You just didn't recognize it." The fight was brutal, but Sam's experience gave him the edge. Duke's wild swings were no match for Sam's calculated movements. Within moments, Sam disarmed him and pinned him against a stack of crates. "You picked the wrong town to mess with," Sam said, his voice low and dangerous, "and the wrong farmer." As Duke struggled, the distant sound of sirens filled the air. Sam had already alerted the authorities, providing them with enough evidence to take the gang down for good. The distant wail of sirens grew louder, signaling the end of the Iron Fang's reign of intimidation. Sam stood over Duke, his imposing figure casting a shadow that seemed larger than life. Duke, pinned and disarmed, glared up at him with a mix of fury and disbelief. "Who the hell are you?" he spat, his voice laced with frustration. Sam smirked, his expression calm but resolute. "Just a farmer," he said, brushing off his hands as if he'd finished a day's work in the fields. a farmer who's had enough of your nonsense." Before Duke could respond, the warehouse was flooded with flashing red and blue lights. Local law enforcement stormed in, weapons drawn, and voices commanding everyone to freeze. The remaining bikers, beaten and disoriented, raised their hands in surrender. Sam stepped back, allowing the officers to take control of the scene. The sheriff, a wiry man named Ed Carlson, approached Sam with wide eyes. "Grayson?" he asked, clearly struggling to reconcile the jovial farmer he knew with the tactical powerhouse who had just dismantled a gang. Sam shrugged, dusting off his shirt. "They were causing trouble at the market. Figured someone had to handle it." Sheriff Carlson shook his head in disbelief, but couldn't hide a small smile. "You handled it all right. We've been trying to get something on these guys for months. You just handed them to us on a silver platter." Sam handed over a flash drive containing video evidence from the cameras he'd planted earlier. "This should give you everything you need. Stolen goods, extortion, assault, you name it." The aftermath. By the time the dust settled, the warehouse was empty except for law enforcement officers cataloging evidence. The bikers were loaded into police vans, their motorcycles confiscated as part of the raid. Duke, his hands cuffed behind his back, glared at Sam as he was led past. "You're gonna regret this," he hissed. Sam chuckled, leaning casually against a stack of crates. "I doubt it." Back at the market the next morning, word of Sam's actions had spread. Vendors and customers alike greeted him with smiles and gratitude, their fear of the bikers replaced with a newfound sense of safety. Abby, the young vendor whose booth had been destroyed, approached Sam with a basket of fresh-baked cookies. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with sincerity, "for standing up for all of us." Sam tipped his hat, his familiar smile returning. Just doing what any good neighbor would do. A quiet return. As Sam returned to his farm that evening, he parked his truck and stood for a moment, gazing out over his fields. The tools of his past life were packed away again, hidden beneath the surface of his quiet existence. He preferred it that way, simple, peaceful, and free of conflict. But deep down, he knew that if trouble ever came knocking again, he'd be ready. For now, though, he was content to be just a farmer,